Ty, how are you?
Man, I'm doing good.
Listen, I just hear it in your voice like that and I believe you. So what is good? When you say I'm doing good, what does that mean to you?
Well, I have two wonderful kids and a wife of my dreams. I live on the ranch of my dreams.
And I think this idea about dreaming, as I was doing my research, and I've watched you from a distance for a long time, it's hard not to pay attention to, I don't know, the Michael Jordan, of riding. And so I think this idea of dreaming is going to be materially important. But I want to pause that for a moment. And I'd love to start with an insight that you had, which is I read this that you said, I don't care about going down in history as a great bull rider or bronc rider. I hope people will remember me as a great cowboy.
Mm.
So, with that being said, what is a great cowboy? How do you think about it being a great cowboy?
Being a great cowboy entails a lot of things. So you have rodeo cowboys, you have ranch cowboys, you have horsemen. Like being a steward of the land, knowing how to manage your ranch, knowing how to manage your grass, and especially when you're dealing with Mother Nature, that's can be very tricky. I just think there's a lot of elements to. It's like saying being a great businessman. That's a word that people use a lot. Oh, he's a great businessman. Well, that entails a lot, and there's a lot of different elements to it. Like, is he great at balancing the books, or is he great at being a leader? Is he great? If he's a CEO of a company, can he get everybody to rally behind him and have the same amount of passion that he does? That's a whole other element beyond knowing how to conduct a meeting or a convention or a seminar, or be able to understand how to make it more profitable, how to make your overhead less. There's just a million areas that can involve, and I feel it's the same with being a cowboy. There's a ton of different areas, and nobody is going to be excellent at every area.
You are really even keel. Like your cadence is even keel, your narrative, the kind of the tone and energy. There's just a consistency, and you used that word earlier. So, were you like this as a kid, or is this a skill that you had to develop to be a good business person, to be a good, cowboy, good partner in life? Like, or is this natural for you?
I don't really know. I know when I do television work, I've been told that, I need to be more animated. I'm too monotone and, things like that. But it's like, I kind of am what I am, and this feels natural to me. That's a good question. I don't really know the answer to that. I know that my profession of being a professional rough stock riding professional rodeo cowboy, you have to get in control of your emotions, and you have to be able to compartmentalize things big time.
I want to know how you learned that because I'm seeing it. It's showing up. Nobody, nobody, that's probably too big a word. Very few, if any, figure out how to have an ideal state of being without going through some really hard times, without
Mm,
testing, you know, um,
mm,
different options of how to be and think and feel and work with emotions. So can
yeah.
you take us way back? I mean, you've been public about one of your first injuries, but is it okay to go back and understand some hardships in your life, whether they're physical and or emotional?
Well, I think that just the sport that I did, I'll argue that it's the most dangerous sport in the world. And that's something that that I've always been very aware of. I was very aware of it when I was a little boy, and I got just enveloped by this sport and this idea, and wanting to be a great cowboy that could ride bucking animals and make it look easy and effortless. And uh, the danger that's in this sport is not only why people want to watch it, but it's also why people want to do it. And that's kind of I'm at a different place in my life, and I feel way different about it now. But for the first 32 years of my life, it's all I thought about, night and day. It was on my mind constantly, and just on its own, it was on my mind constantly.
First bone that you broke?
I broke my leg when I was 2 years old, falling off a horse.
Hmm.
So it started early. I broke my jaw when I was 9, and then in my professional career,
Wait,
I
wait,
had
hold on, Ty. You're
yeah.
2 years old and you fell off a horse. So somebody was with you, I would imagine.
Where it was actually, I was on a horse with both of my sisters. All three of us were on the horse, and he was a really good horse, but uh, I was too young to be up there, and my sisters kind of took off, and off the back I went and broke my leg.
And tell me about your parents. Like, are you gonna are yeah, let's put Ty up there, with like two sisters, put him on the back, that
Right,
that
right.
sounds reasonable.
Right.
Tell
That's
me, tell me,
something. Yeah.
tell me
And
about your
and
parents.
so and so I'm the other way, like with my kids. I'm probably really overprotective, but I've seen, in my lifetime of 52 years, I've seen some bad stuff happen. And it can happen so fast whenever you're talking about a 1,200-pound animal. So I'm the opposite of that. And my parents, they were just raised in cowboy families, and I mean, it was back when a lot of things were different, I think in raising kids back, or it seems to me it was, that
Did you say 50? You're 50?
I'm 52. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll tell you a funny story. This does not compare to the danger you had, but so I grew up early days, like formative years on a farm, and we had a horse. That horse, don't walk behind a horse.
Yeah.
Sure enough, it got my sister.
Hmm.
I mean, launched her. It was like, holy, like the power of
Yeah.
that thing. So like
Yeah.
from that point on, I was like, oh, I understand now. So like, and so things go really quickly. She's fine. She survived it, no problems.
Yeah.
But things go bad quickly. And
Mm.
another kind of informative, this again, my sister, my little sister, we were at our local pond, and all of a sudden a bull kind of squared up on her, and she was the runt. She was the little one,
Hmm.
she was
Yeah.
I don't know, she was only like 6 years old or something. And that bull squared up on her, and for whatever reason was like, I'm getting the little one. I don't know what
Uh-huh.
happened. And then one of my crazy uncles, he's no longer with us. Um, I mean, he lived a hard life, but so I understand why. Without any hesitation, and we're going fishing.
Right.
We don't want anything to do with these cows and this bull,
Right.
and he runs and puts himself right in between this charging bull and this little 6-year-old,
Oh
so
yeah.
I haven't seen what you've seen, but those are not stories I was going to tell you.
Yeah.
The story I
Yeah.
was
And
going to
those
tell you,
yeah.
wait, that's not what I was going to tell you. I was going to say it was different when you said that, is that my parents said, hey, I was like, how old was I? I was like 9, probably my age. And they said, hey, we're going to go travel cross country. And so they bought a van, like I
Hmm.
call it a danger van, like those dark vans that don't have any windows,
Yeah.
they're too
Yeah.
long. And I go, oh, good. Where do my sister and I sit? And they're like, we got you some lawn chairs.
Yeah.
What? So they put us in lawn chairs, drove across country for a couple of weeks in lawn
Yeah.
chairs, like the nylon
Yeah.
ones, with the metal
Right.
thing.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
like it was different then. It was different.
Mm.
Okay. So all that fun aside, your jaw at 9, what
Yeah. I
happened?
broke I broke my jaw at 9 riding a bull. I started, see,
At
when
9,
you're
at
little at
9.
9, yeah, and that's I can't even imagine it. My son is 10, and I only had my son. I told my son, since he was a little bitty guy, I said, I only want you to make me 2 promises in life. I said, only 2. I'm only going to ask for 2 things that I want you to promise me and stick to it for. And that was to never ride bulls and to never do drugs. And those are 2 such scary things that, you don't, you, as a parent, you can feel so helpless, even when you're talking about just riding your, the horses that I have that are gentle ranch horses that have a good understanding. You're still talking about a really helpless feeling when you're a parent and your kid is on a horse. And if something does go south, which, as just as it can, that's a really helpless feeling. And so I think sometimes people are like, why, you're so protective of your kids. And, I guess everybody's experience kind of shapes everybody a little bit differently, but I just feel like they're little kids, and they when they can be in danger and not know it. And so it's my job to mitigate that and make sure that they're not in a position that something could go south and they're the one that's going to pay for it. I try to make it where I'm always in a position that if something goes south, I'm there to help them not get wiped out.
Ty, how do you think about yourself? And the reason this is a big, big question, so I'm going to narrow this down. Do you see yourself like as a protector? Do you see yourself as like an alpha kind of human? Do you see
Mm,
yourself as the ringleader? You know, and
mm,
it's a big, big question. But
yeah.
when I'm feeling you right now, we'll go back to feel. When I'm feeling you, there's an even keel. There's even
Mm,
this deep awareness about how things work, and I feel that you're working from principles that are almost unwavering. And I think that that's the combination of this is likely why you are so good and a tolerance to
mm,
be able to work in
mm.
highly dangerous environments. But how do you capture yourself? Do you feel like, or do you feel like a kid still, where it's like,
Yeah.
man, I'm kind of scared of things, you know, so I just do my best.
No, I don't.
And
I don't really feel scared of things. I feel
Mhm.
experienced, and it feels like experience is what comes from sometimes bad decisions, or living life, or there's a lot of things that experience comes from. But I feel like I'm experienced, and I just when it comes to my kids and my wife, I feel like it's my job to take care of them. That being said, you know, I've never really analyzed all of this stuff, but I would have to think that, I wanted to be a bull rider at 2 years old. And I started riding calves at 2. My dad would run along beside me and hold my belt so that when I fell off, I wouldn't hit the ground. He would just set me down. And I was serious about it at 2. A lot of people find that hard to believe, but I was raised as a cowboy around cowboys for this is generations. And and it was just everything to me, like that was all I wanted to do every day. And I think when you grow up in that environment of doing these dangerous tasks, doing these dangerous events, um, I think that it probably most definitely had, a part in shaping what I'm like, from a analyzing my personality or whatever. I would think that, like even in business, like I'm no genius and I'm no educated businessman, but everything that I've always used in business was what I learned from writing. If you believe in something and you have a passion for it, and you try hard enough, and you try your guts out at every moment of it because you're passionate about it and you believe in it. That's that's really all I've that's really the only tools that I had in my toolbox as far as business goes. But I feel like it's something that's really helped me. Um,
oh, I think there's a couple more in here. I think you know how to operate well in high risk environments.
mm,
And you know, you got to lay some bets in business. It's really hard to grow at the clip that most people are interested in without laying
yeah.
some bets. So I think you know how to do risk really well. I do want to understand that. And before we do risk, have you okay, there's two types of trauma. Trauma with a big T and trauma with a little t. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if well, how did you break your jaw? It was a bull you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I
That
don't
bull
know if
stepped right here.
my God.
Yeah, I know. I
It
mean, I
was
know, and I know it seemed just normal. And I begged to do it when I was 9 years old. I begged my parents, and my parents, they had a belief in my ability. And I practiced this stuff every day, and they had a belief in my ability. But uh, I
oh,
was
okay.
I was too little, and I was in too big of a situation. And uh, when I broke my jaw, they took me to the doctor, the doctor came in and, he x-rayed it and he knew it was broke. And he was trying to explain to a 9-year-old, how they were going to wire my mouth shut and all this stuff. So he's trying to break it down for a 9-year-old. And he says, Ty, he says, what's going to happen is we're going to put you to sleep. And he started to say, and then we're going to wire your mouth shut. But when he said, put you to sleep, growing up as a cowboy kid, putting an animal to sleep,
Oh my God.
and
Yeah, right.
my mom said, I stood up off the exam table and I said, it ain't that bad. So that was kind of a thing that they laugh about, that I thought they were going to put me down.
Okay, so before we go to the trauma, well, no, let's stay here. Have you had significant trauma, big T trauma in your life, from the experiences you've had, or would you call this little T trauma? And I want to understand that, because your ability to stay in it when it's hard
Mm.
is noted. And so was this a big trauma, and did you have big traumas in your life?
Well, I don't know that I really know for sure what you would call, what you would label big trauma or little trauma.
Mhm.
I think that was, looking back, it just felt normal. When you're a kid, you only know what you know, and
Yeah.
so,
So that
you
might not
know,
even be trauma.
uh,
Like trauma is when you get changed, when you're changed
mm.
in a way where you are constantly on the lookout to not
the
become
w- here, here's
re-traumatized
the
again.
here's the weird thing. Trying to remember it, trying to think back on it. Here's the weird thing: is instead of it making me hesitant, or like I don't want to do that, or I got to be very careful, it almost had like an opposite effect on me of, you've got to commit, and you've got to go for it, and when it looks the worst is when you got to go for it the hardest. And and I don't know for sure. I think the reason that it maybe that it had that effect on me is because my dad, I grew up as a little boy watching my dad break colts for a living. That's what he did, is he started young horses. And there were times that it would get, it could get rough. Um, and my dad would always just go to it. And so, that's all I remember seeing as a little boy. I remember seeing my dad wouldn't get safe. He wouldn't get hesitant or back off. He would just go to it, and
Mm.
and kind of meet the danger, or the, whatever you want to call it, head on. And so, I think that I somehow took that on, and I think that injury was, uh, I'm not real, used to using like that, the word trauma, but I think that definitely had some effect on me, because I remember, having a broken jaw and I had my mouth wired shut. And when I came back from that as a kid, I started riding again while my jaw was still wired shut. And I put on a football helmet, and that's just the way it was. Here's the thing: if you're going to be a cowboy, you've got to be tough. That's not a that's a prerequisite. It's just the way it is. So many things that cowboys do, it requires an amount of toughness.
Okay, I want to take a quick little break right here to talk about our new partner, Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. They give entrepreneurs the resources that were once only available to big businesses, so that startups and established businesses alike can access the tools they need to scale and succeed. So with Shopify, businesses can reach their customers anywhere, in person, online, and across social networks even, with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps. You can synchronize your online and in-person sales. You can stay effortlessly informed, and then gain insights as you grow with detailed reporting of conversion rates, profit margins, and the more. Shopify has created a really thorough and thoughtful platform. We are currently working on building out a new website here at Finding Mastery, and we're stoked to integrate Shopify's platform. It was a no-brainer for the next phase of our business, and our team is loving the solutions that they've created. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or an established business owner, I really want to encourage you to go check out what Shopify has done. To get started, go to shopify.com/findingmastery for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. So it's shopify.com/findingmastery. Go check them out right now. See what they got going on. That's shopify.com/findingmastery. And Finding Mastery is brought to you by Athletic Greens. I love Athletic Greens. If you've been part of this community, you know that. If you're new here, I just want to encourage you to go check out what they're doing. And so I've been using Athletic Greens for just about 8 years now, and I'm stoked on it. I love the energy levels that I have on a daily basis, and Athletic Greens is part of that equation. It's just one scoop is all I use of Athletic Greens, and inside that, there's 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, adaptogens, all to help, get the day started right. I use it in the morning. So their special blend of ingredients are designed to support gut health, nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focus. They're thinking about aging in some of their vitamins and minerals that they've put together as well. So right now, I think it's a great time to invest in your immune system for obvious reasons. And so there's no need for a million different pills and supplements to look after your health. Athletic Greens is making it super simple. It's one scoop and then free 1-year supply that they're offering us for vitamin D. And they're also throwing in 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. So just punch over to athleticgreens.com/finding mastery. Again, it's athleticgreens.com/finding mastery. And with that, let's jump right back into our conversation. Let's open that up. Physical toughness, or are you talking about mental, emotional toughness?
Well, both.
Okay, I'm way more interested in the mental, emotional. Like, physical is like, I don't really understand that, because once you get lactic acid or you get a cut, like that too becomes lactic acid is when your muscles are burning because they've been used in such a deep level. But it's emotional, it's mental. So how do you do it when it's really hard and you're sensing all the danger, or you're sensing the deep pain or the potential for pain or the fatigue or whatever it might be? What do you say to yourself?
I think the way you're raised as a cowboy is you don't weaken. You just, if you get into a can of worms, you stay hooked and you stay committed. And that's just the way, that's kind of the cowboy creed. And
what does that mean? If you're in a can of worms, you stay hooked?
Like if you open a can of worms, I'm just trying to think of a word for like when something gets, if you're going and if you got to go out here and you got to catch a bull that's in the brush, and you go out there on your horse and this bull won't come out of the brush, and you've got to get him caught, and you've got to get him taken somewhere else, and you got to rope this bull. It can be a can of worms. Like that can get, you're talking about an animal that weighs 1,800 pounds on the end of a nylon rope, and you're on a 1,200 pound horse, and you do the math, it can get, there's a lot of things about being a cowboy that can get dangerous, that can get rough, that can put you in a place that you're probably going to experience some pain. But that's something that I feel like I've grown up with my whole life. It's
okay.
just
because I don't know it. Bring me into that moment where you're on your horse. There's a scared, pissed off. There's some sort of animated bull that you've got to rally. Like, what are you saying? Did you come from anger? Like, get the fuck over here. Or is it like, okay, come on now. We're going to work together. Like, how do you do this?
So for me, I'm trying to have better skill. I'm trying to work smarter instead of harder. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so there are cowboys that are just rough, they're just rough. They're just tough and rough, and they're just going to bail into it head first. And I try not to work that way. I try to work smarter instead of harder. That's why having better skills and being a better horseman are all things that lend itself to it being easier on everyone. Being a good stockman, being a good horseman, that means that you can handle horses and cattle quietly, and where you're not stressing them and you're not scaring them. And when you do that, it becomes safer and quieter and better for everyone involved. And so I think that the great cowboys that you look at are, you would call them stockmen, you would call them a horseman, you would call them somebody that can, like an example is a rough cowboy. If they got to put a cow through a gate, you're in a 1,000-acre pasture, and you've got to get a cow, and you've got to get her to go through that gate over there. A rough guy will just try to shove her through that gate. And what you'll see is that cow will want to go anywhere in that pasture but to that gate, because they're putting pressure on at the exact wrong time. And so the way I would work is I take that cow, and if we're in a 1,000-acre pasture right here, picture a big square that's 1,000 acres, and I'm on this side of it, I draw a line like this because the gate's over there. So in my mind, there's a line right here. Anytime that cow is breathing on this side of the line, I'm not doing anything. It's all free for her. And that's a way that you're working smarter. So instead of trying to shove her through that gate and be right on her and you think you're going to shove her, well, you're making the thing you want hard. And
That's a really cool framework.
and if you can, like when you're dealing with animals, whether it be a horse or a cow, they're very closely the same thing. They're both herbivores that live in herds. They feel better in a herd. They feel better with a leader. And so when you can learn to set all the situations up to where what you want is easy, and maybe what they think they could do is more difficult, not hard, but a little more difficult. So if that cow starts to come to this side of the line, that's when I would start riding my horse and kind of creating some, hey, I'm over here. This isn't the way you want to come. And as soon as she would think about going the other way, I would just turn to butter and then just let that happen. And so, those are two really different types of people and ideologies, but one works a lot better, and it's a lot safer, and it's a lot quieter, and it's a lot easier on everyone, where the rough way, it generally always just gets rough, and it just can turn a day that should have took you 5 minutes into something that takes you all day, and it's just rough and hard. And that doesn't interest me. I feel like that's just going back to the first thing you said was that that I want to be a great cowboy. That doesn't mean just being rough and stupid. That means being smarter and having more knowledge and having a better understanding and doing things that, if you're going to work with animals, you better get some knowledge and learn how to understand them and the way their mind works and the way you can have cause and effect. And those are things that just make all of our lives easier. Me, the horse, and the cow.
So you said earlier, like, I'm not sure, other than like having a vision about, what you want to do and working really hard, working your guts out at it. But then I hear words like feel and loving it. And there's a quietness to this art. There's a deep skill to be quiet, to have the feel. There's a love that supports it. Then there's a toughness, and not a roughness, but a toughness in the way that you organize yourself. To be able to do the hard thing, the difficult thing, not the hard thing, the difficult thing. And I also hear patience. I hear relationship, like I talked about, and trust. A trust that I think that you would say, this is going to work out. I think you trust your future, but I don't, you trust your future.
Well, what do you mean by that? Do I trust my future?
Do you trust that no matter how this conversation or this wrangling of the bull goes, that you're going to figure out on the other side of it how to adjust?
No, I have trust, but I also have a lot of experience, and I've seen what works and I've seen what makes it hard. So I just do what works. There's a novel idea.
Yeah. So if you were to, if we were to title this, something about getting better, right? Like, I think you understand how to get better at something. And what would you say is like, listen, I'm going to oversimplify this, but if you really want to get good at something, here's a few things that I think I don't know how I would do without it. It's these couple things.
You're talking about something that somebody wants to get better at, or
Anything.
just like
Yeah.
an element in life, or
Mhm.
whether it's a sport or being a dad or running
Exactly.
a better business or a husband or whatever. For me, it's something that I've always said that, you look at any walk of life you're in. So for me, it was rodeo or being a cowboy. You see the people that are the best at it, and they have all different ways of going about it, to a degree. And so if I, when I was young, looking at champions, I could only find one thing that I felt like I knew that all of them had, and it starts with love. Like if you don't love what it is, you are wasting your time. I feel if I feel like everything it has to start with that. It has to start with love. You have to love it. And whether that be my marriage, whether that be being a dad, or whether that be being a professional rodeo cowboy, if you don't love it, if you're doing it because your girlfriend thinks it's cool, or your dad wished he would have, or it's what your buddies are doing it or doing that, then that's not good. You're not gonna achieve excellence if you don't have that starting element. There's a lot of other things that have to line up as well, but that's the only one that I feel like whenever you see somebody that can become great at something, I think that's the number one element that has to be there. And then it's kind of a little bit different from there. You see some people that are kind of more naturals. You see some people that practice like crazy. You see guys that train hard. You see other guys that just kind of mail it in. So there's a lot of different elements after that, but I feel like that's where it has to start. And then after love, I think there has to be a passion. So, and I think passion and love are two different things. And I'm not talking, I'm talking about a passion for something. I'm talking about where you think about it all the time without trying to. Like it's you love it that much that you develop a passion for it. So you're thinking about it all the time. It's what's on your mind all the time. And that's the only way that I feel like you can really get better or become great at something, is if you have that passion. I think that another element is there has to be some ability. I don't think you can, and when I say ability, I mean, you have to have some kind of inherent trait that lends itself to whatever endeavor you're talking about. So if I'm 6'5" and weigh 280, I'm not going to have it's like being a gymnast. I'm not going to be a gymnast, and I'm not going to be a bull rider. It's just because you got, so for me, luckily, I feel like I was born with the exact right body for what I did. 5'10", 170 pounds. I'm very, I don't know what you would call it, very wiry, very flexible, very strong pound for pound, very fast twitch muscle fibers, just kind of, I feel like I was just born with a body that really lends itself to what I wanted to do. And then I feel like there's got to be serious dedication. If you're wanting to achieve greatness in something, or and I'm not even going to say greatness. For me, it was, I wanted to win 7 world all around championships. That was like my life goal since I was a little kid, because the very best guy, my hero, was a guy named Larry Mahan, and he won 6. So I made him my benchmark, and I wanted to win 7. And so, being able to dedicate myself, you can't, I just don't think you're going to achieve something that big, or if you want to call it greatness, or if you want to be the best brain surgeon in the world, or you want your business to get to $30 million a year, or whatever it is, without dedication, those things aren't going to happen, I don't think. When I look at the things that I've been lucky enough to do, in business, it was more about, I never did them. I never did it to make money. Like I look back at it and I'm like, because I wasn't doing it to make money, I was able to make the right decision instead of the decision that I thought would put money in my pocket the fastest. And so, that's something else that I think is really important. And that's not easy because everybody's got to make money. Everybody's got to make a living. I hate when I hear people say, oh, he just does it for the money. Well, yeah, that's why you go to your job every day too, is for the money. Everybody's got to do something for the money, but like the endeavors that I've done, that I was passionate about it and I believed in it. And I was trying to make the decisions that were right for it, not for what I thought was going to get me a paycheck the quickest. I think there's a couple more elements. I feel like they get almost not more important, but they're all still big pieces of the puzzle. And so for me, like after dedication, you have to have practice. And practice is different than dedication. So, practice is you've got to work at honing your craft, whatever it may be. If you're going to be a brain surgeon, or if you're in business, or if you're whatever, you've got to practice, and you've got to practice and practice and practice till it starts to feel like art. That's when it's easy, is when it starts to feel like art. So that's how the things that I've been able to achieve a better level of is like in riding, bucking horses and bulls. It started to feel like art to me. It wasn't just mechanical. It wasn't just where you get in there and you're like, okay, because I always say that anything you do, especially like in sport, like there's 5 basic things. There might be 3 basic things, but there's a number of basic things that you have to do. And if you don't do those basic things, it ain't going to work for you. But it can go so far past that, like just the mechanics and the basics of the things that you got to do. And it can start to become like art. And that's when it gets fun. And that's when it gets like, that's where it feels awesome, is when it starts to feel like that. And then I think that there's definitely a spiritual element. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about I feel like the things that I've done in my life, the things that interest me and the things that I've gone after, I feel like there's a spiritual element to it, that it feels deeper to me than just, oh, I'm a bull rider, or, oh, I'm a horseman. It feels deeper than that to me. It feels more important than that to me. It feels like I have an amount of respect for it that is important to me, and honoring it. And really this kind of the art and the spiritual part are kind of what are kind of the end, or not the end, but like as you're really into it and you're really starting to do well at it, those two things kind of come together, sort of, you know what I mean? And it just feels like that's when it feels amazing. And it's not just some sport that you're doing.
Okay, I want to take a quick little break here to talk about Apollo Neuro. If you're feeling stress and you're not quite managing it the way you'd like to, if you're feeling that pressure that comes with, the fast-paced environment that you're choosing to live in, your professional and your personal life, and I just want you to check out what Apollo Neuro is doing. Their technology trains your nervous system to cope with stress better over time so that you can sleep and focus and stay healthy and productive. It works by engaging your sense of touch, delivering gentle vibrations to help you rebalance your nervous system. I wear it twice a day, and it's only a handful of minutes that I wear it each time. I use it after I do something that challenges me, and then I use it right before I go to bed. So I use it to down regulate. Once my body is switched on, I'm looking for as many competitive advantages as I can to downregulate so that I can gear back up in an intense way later, more often. So if you're interested in learning more, I would definitely listen to the previous Finding Mastery episode with their founder, Dr. David Rabin. And I want to encourage you to check out what they're doing. So go to apolloneuro.com/finding mastery to learn more about their product, what they're doing. And then you'll also get 15% off your purchase. So you spell it APOLLO, Apollo Neuro, NEURO, apolloneuro.com/finding mastery for 15% off your purchase. And Finding Mastery is also brought to you by Inside Tracker. Inside Tracker, they cut through the noise by analyzing your blood, DNA, lifestyle, fitness trackers, all designed to provide you with a personalized, science-backed, trackable action plan on how you can live and age and perform better in life. And that's my favorite part. They don't just give you data and then say, okay, figure it out, good luck, here's some general recommendations. They actually provide you with nutrition and lifestyle actionable steps that you can take to live well. So if you missed our Finding Mastery conversation with Inside Tracker's founder and chief science officer, Dr. Gil Blander, I hope you'll check that out. We take a deep dive on health span and lifespan, and we discuss different strategies for living a longer, higher quality of life. So for a limited time, Inside Tracker is offering us 20% off their entire store. So if you're interested, this is a great opportunity to go get started with them. So just punch over to insidetracker.com/finding mastery to check out what they're doing for 20% off. And it's spelled just like it sounds, inside, INSIDE, tracker, TRACKER, insidetracker.com/finding mastery for 20% off. With that, let's jump right back into this conversation. When I listen to you, this is going to sound maybe harsh of what I'm about to say about others, is that, you know how when you know this well, when you see a clown and they've got all this makeup on and they've got like a frown or a smile or whatever, but it's like there's this makeup. So they're presenting a certain way, but it's not maybe what's happening underneath. And so oftentimes people say words about performing at a very high level. And to me, it sounds like a clown. I listen to you, and it's independent. It's remarkable. It's independent to the discipline of the science and the art, whether it's basketball or surgery or whatever it might be, bull riding, that there's such a deep commonality of people that really understand it. And it's not just words. It's like there's scar tissue to back it up. There's stories to back it up, but there's the way that the words are chosen, that, and the just the tenderness of how you describe it, that I go, oh yeah, there it is. There it is. Yeah.
I've always said this sport, I feel like when you see somebody that's great at a sport, I feel like it's more mental than it is physical, because when you get to the highest level of anything, everybody's good. It's got to be something deeper than that. I feel like so many things when you're talking about sport, when you see the guys that are the very best, I'm talking about the guys that you're like, that's maybe the greatest that there's ever been. It's different. He's not just a great athlete that was born with like one of the things of ability, like, some of them, that's it. They got ability and they're not that dedicated. They're not that passionate about it. They probably don't really love it that much.
We call them coach killers.
Well, yeah. And so the mental side, I know that in my sport, I feel like that you've got to figure out a way to if you haven't gained confidence through your practice and your training and the things that the things that can give you confidence, you've got to find confidence somewhere, because that is the one element that you've got to have every time, is you've got to have the confidence. And so for me, talking about those things that we were talking about, the love and the passion and the dedication and the practice. Those are the things that helped give me confidence. But you also have to have a, like more than confidence, you almost have to have like an ability to compartmentalize to where what you're doing is really dangerous. The difference in riding bulls and playing basketball or baseball or a lot of the sports is you still have the pressures of winning and losing or championships or things like that. The pressure of the ball's in your hand and there's 2 seconds on the clock and you're down by 3 and you're at the 3-point line. Those are big pressures. Don't absolutely. But in bull riding, you have the pressure of living and dying every time. So that kind of ups it's not just, no, we lost, darn it, or, even if it was really important to you, you're still going to go home to your family and you're still going to, tomorrow, the sun's still going to come up and all those things. So with bull riding, it's like, it has all those elements. It has all those same elements of what you're trying to accomplish and winning and losing and championships and all that. But whenever you have something that it can kill you pretty easily. I'll just say, I'm not sugarcoating it. And that as a bull rider, I know it better than you know it because I've been down there and looked the devil right in the eye. I know how rough it gets. I know how dangerous it can get. I've had a lot of friends die. I've had friends be maimed. I've had friends have brain injuries that changed them forever. I have friends that are paralyzed. Trust me, I know all about the dangers of this sport. But for the first 32 years of my life, it felt worth it to me. It doesn't now. Now I'm 52. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. There's other things that feel way more important. It almost feels silly to me sometimes when I look back at my rodeo career. It almost feels like where for the first 32 years of my life, it was the only thing. You know what I mean? It was like, that's what drove me every day. And I thought it was the most important thing. And I thought it was, I was going to do whatever it took. And it doesn't feel that way to me anymore. I'm not saying that discounting. I feel very lucky and fortunate and honored with the accolades that I was able to achieve in the sport. And it's a big part of who I am. And it's a gigantic part of what I have. So I'm not discounting it. I'm just at a different place in my life now where it doesn't feel the way it used to feel to me, because you can't guarantee when you ride bulls, you can't guarantee you're going to stay on. You can't guarantee you're going to get a good score. You can't guarantee anything. But the one thing that I could guarantee every time, I only knew I could guarantee one thing, and that was I was going to try harder than anybody else. And so, that's what I tried to do. And that's mental. That's not, that's mental, slice it up however you want. It still comes down to your mental game of being able to commit and say, bull riding is not a thing that you put your toe in the water and kind of say, how's it feel? You know what I mean? Like it's a thing where when I try to explain it to people, because sometimes people will say, well, car racing is dangerous or downhill speed skiing is dangerous, or, there's these other things that are dangerous. And I'm like, absolutely. I said, but the difference is, like, if you're going to use car racing as an example, you're still the one with your foot on the throttle or the brake. And when you're talking about bull riding, the bull is in charge of the throttle. When you nod your head and that gate opens, the bull has the throttle, and you've got to be able to decide if you're going to go there. When he pushes the throttle, when and if he pushes the throttle to the max, are you going to go there? And that's all mental, to be able to be in a place that every time you can say, yeah, wherever this goes, I'm going. And I feel like that's important in not only winning, but that's what keeps you safe. It's counterintuitive. I think a lot of things in life are that way. I think sometimes what it feels like you should do is the wrong thing to do. And so, being able to go for it and continue to try to do the right basic things, even when it's really scary and really hairy, you've got to be able to do that. And all of that comes from here.
Do we fall to our level of training or rise to occasions?
I think that preparation is everything in
Yeah,
sport.
me too. Yeah, me too. If you were to
I think preparation's everything in everything. I mean,
I do too.
really.
Yeah, I do too. I think we fall to our level of training. But the wild card for many people, unfortunately, it doesn't have to be this way, is their psychology.
And I will say this, if your brain works in a way that I don't know, you might call it a show off. I don't know what you call it. But if your brain works in a way that when all the eyes are on you, you compete better, that is an important attribute to have in sport.
Well, it's funny. There's an interesting finding when it comes to the psychology of sport, is that mental skills training has been found to work for the majority, right?
Mm.
Unless you're a narcissist. If you're a true narcissist,
Mm.
what you need is for somebody to turn the lights on. And when the lights
Mm.
turned on, you go, oh, yes, I'm here. And you're at home. And like,
Mm.
and I think you're talking about that and one level down from that, which is like, ooh, I love this. Okay, it's go time. And
Mm.
that type of thinking is easier and easier to get to that flow zone type of thing that many people are looking for. If you're like, oh my God, this is dangerous. Okay, I got a lot on the line. I should have. Man, what if? All of that type of thinking is just so complicated. It pulls us out of
And
being.
counterproductive.
That's counterproductive.
That's the
Not
worst.
counterintuitive. It's counterproductive.
And that's what I say about,
Yeah.
I think there's an element of you have to learn how to compartmentalize, because when you're talking, and I think you have to compartmentalize in all sports. I think the stakes are higher in bull riding. I think the things that you are having to compartmentalize are a bigger thing to me. It
Yeah.
sure feels
I,
that way.
I do liken it to big wave surfing, where you're out in the
Well,
wild
that's
and
a great example. Yeah, the
yeah,
ocean's going to decide. The
the ocean
ocean has
decides.
its foot on the throttle for
Yeah,
sure.
once you commit, and there's a space between hesitation and commitment. When you're paddling
Mm-hmm.
into the most dangerous thing that you could be paddling into, there's a crest that's taking place. And if you
Mm-hmm.
pull back or hesitate in any kind of way, it's a very dangerous space.
So that's a perfect analogy of what I was trying to say earlier about,
Mhm.
you've got to say, if you're going to, I'm not saying, here's the thing that I always say, like when I'm commentating and I see a guy put out a poor effort, I understand this is scary, dangerous stuff. It was scary. I rode 6,000 times in my lifetime, and it was scary every single time. That's just what
Hmm.
it is. If you're not scared, if you're getting on a bull that weighs 2,000 pounds and can jump 4 feet in the air, and his hind feet can go 12 feet in the air, and you're not, and you feel like, oh, there's nothing. Well, you you got some other problems. I mean, I think that somebody that tells you they're not scared is lying. And you still got to be, if you are going to be the one that paddles into that wave, then don't come paddling into the wave and saying, yeah, but I'm going to put my toe in and see how it goes. If you're at the professional highest level, and I'm the one going to commentate on it, it ain't for everybody. I understand. I get it. It ain't for me now whatsoever. But there was a time that it was for me. And when I paddled into that wave, I'm not going to have that hesitation. And that's what I was saying. I think from a young age, I learned that you go to it. And a lot of it, I think I learned from my dad, and a lot of it I learned from experience. And every time I hesitated, it felt like I got wiped out. And so I quit hesitating. And I'm not saying I was great every time or perfect every time or did things right every time, but that was my intent was, it's go time and we're going. And I feel like that's a really important part that is going to get you past the physical of it. Because as I said, when you get to the highest level of anything, everybody's pretty damn good, and so there's got to be something that goes further than that.
Out of 6,000 times on a bull, how many or what percentage of the time would you say you reach that flow state, that zone, being in the pocket where it was
Well, I
just
think my
easy?
riding percentage when I retired was at 75%. And there was years, I know there was years that it was a lot better than that. I had in 1998, when I broke the record, I went to 56 rodeos that year, and I got a check in the bull riding at 53 of them. So that's a pretty high percentage. Now
But
it
what
doesn't
percentage
always,
did you but what percentage did you find that flow state?
that's a good question. What I was going to say is if my riding percentage was 85%, I don't necessarily say the flow state was 85%.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
was getting it done here and there where it was hard, and I was struggling a little, and I was a little bit behind, and I made the wrong move, and then things get wonky, and it kind of snowballs on you, and you have to work your way through it and fight to get back. That's not flow state. That's where you're just grinding it out, and through your toughness and your experience, you're maybe still pulling it off anyway. But those moments where it's just, think of it like being a batter, and the guy throws 100-mile-an-hour pitch. You're not going, okay, here the ball comes. Yeah, it looks like I need to move my bat down about 2 inches. That ain't how it goes. You've got to decide, even if you're going to swing, about the time he's releasing it. I mean, this is stuff that's going like that. And it's so, you watch those guys that step up there and the guy throws it 100 miles an hour, and they just swing like nothing and make perfect contact, and that ball flies forever. That's just preparedness. I don't know if you've seen this book. I can't think of the name of it, but it was a book about sports, and it talked about chunking time. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where they took the like the best batter in Major League Baseball and brought in a girl softball pitcher, and he couldn't hit her. And that's just because that isn't what his dedication and practice was for. So he didn't know how to hit that completely different rhythm, completely different visual. Everything about it was different.
Yeah, that being able to use your words, chunk, it's frames of reference, is that it's literally a different game. The best of the best know how to pick up slight angles of hips or shoulders or head nods or rotations to go, oh, I can see that. I've seen that. But if it's new, it's new.
That comes
And
from
so
experience.
that's it.
If you're gonna get great at what we're talking about, that's through experience and through dedication and practice. But a lot of dedication and a lot of practice is what can give you a lot of experience.
So bring me in, and we're going to wrap up here. I want to say thank you for this conversation, but bring me in. You're about ready to get on an 1,800-pound raging animal that's pinned up, doesn't like any of it. Walk me through, like, putting your legs around it, getting your wrist and your hand tied in. Like, walk me through how that works for you. Your heart rate, your thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's obviously very different, for me than it would be for just John Q. Public, because this is something that I've done so many times, and there was always a nervousness and a scaredness. Always. I mean, I'm just telling you like it is for me. I'm just being honest. There was never a time that I got on a bull and was like, yeah, I'm not scared at all. Not one bit. No, there was never, and there was, there's maybe times with certain bulls that your heart's beating harder than on this other bull, but every single time I had a respect for it, because an animal that weighs 2,000 pounds can smash you without even trying to. You know what I mean? They don't have to be mean. When they're that big, you're in a dangerous environment. And so for me, having all these things that we've talked about in place would help. I would be nervous leading up to it. I might even be nervous about it that day. And then, you get to the locker room and you're getting all your equipment ready, and, you're maybe taping your knees or doing whatever it is that you need to do to get prepared. And you can even be nervous in that moment. But it's like, I would try to always put myself, I would always go visit with a great friend, or I'd go watch a guy ride that was a guy that inspires me. And then once it was time to climb into the chute, there was always a calmness that would happen in that moment, because when you get to that moment, it's like, your preparedness, your practice, your dedication, that's where that takes over. And so this is just, so now, I would always be more nervous, outside of that time than I was when I was actually crawling down into the chute, because when you're crawling down in the chute, you've done that so many times. Like I would get on 10 calves a day when I was 3 years old. I was just ate up with it. I couldn't do it enough. Like I just wanted to do it and get better at it and try. And so it's like when you get to that place where it's just a matter of, okay, now this is what I do. I didn't really feel nervous at that point, but there was definitely nerves and a scariness, every time. And when I'm saying you're scared, I'm not talking about like, I'm scared. Oh no. I'm just saying, you know that what you're doing can have a very high consequence. And so, that every time. And so to me, it just makes you become more hyper aware that you better do the things that we've been talking about, as far as you're not going to dab your toe in the water here. This isn't where you want to hesitate, this. And if you do want to hesitate, then don't ride bulls or you know what I mean? Like I understand, I understand that feeling. I understand being scared. I understand, feeling like, man, I'm doing something I could get wiped out at. But if you're going to paddle into that wave, you better, I don't know that much about surfing, but other than I feel like you better go for it. If you're gonna paddle into it, you better be entered and you better stay hooked, because you don't want to go into that with that hesitation. That's what gets you pummeled.
All the greats in consequential environments say something almost identical to what you're saying, which is it's scary. And you know what? I'm attracted to it. And I'm attracted to it because I'm alive. And then when it comes down to that moment, when it comes to that commitment piece, it gets quiet. And so I rely on all my physical training. I rely on my ability to use my mind in this moment for the most productive, the most optimal way that I can be thinking. And I got to let go, trust, and completely be in rhythm with the unfolding danger that's in front of me.
Here's one more thing I would say about this, though.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to have perfect control of your brain without thinking too much. I've seen so many guys that do that they understand that it's a mental game, but they're like trying to be all, what should I be thinking? Should I be thinking this? Am I positive enough? Am I being positive enough? Should I be,
it doesn't work like that.
You can't get in that place. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. You can't get in
that
place where you're spending all your time thinking about what you ought to be thinking about. It's,
no.
To me,
you gotta sort that well. And that's the fool's game. That's like the amateur game.
Right.
And at some level, like the thinking is right, which is like, listen, I got to have some command of my mind. But if you're about to get strapped to a 2,000 pound raging animal, like that's not the time to be sorting out what the greatest thoughts are, because what you want to be able to do is let go and trust. And people say to me all the time, like, Michael, like, what are you trying to, like, what do you say? Or what do you do? I say, listen, the day of, before they're going out, if I'm there, I'm just like, I'm just nodding my head, like, and
what are you talking about? Are you talking about surfing?
I'm talking about any environment of consequence.
Anything. Okay.
Any environment of consequence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, okay, to honor your time, just a couple quick hits. And this is like super simple answers. You've talked about feel for the animal. You've talked about a feel when you get on the bull so that you can let go. Do you feel it now as you're talking about it?
I just feel like we're just having a chat. I mean, I don't, it doesn't really feel like that to me now. Like,
okay.
Like feel with bull riding in a nutshell. I'm going to talk about two different things here, but bull riding in a nutshell is, I think the layman thinks, okay, it's a crazy cowboy. He gets on, he holds on for dear life. Um, the strongest guy in the world ain't going to hold on for dear life. When you're talking about how big and how strong and how fast and how powerful these animals are, what bull riding is in a nutshell is constantly being able to put your body into a position that counteracts what the bull is doing to try to get you off of his back. Now, when you're talking about counter movement, without feel, you're not going to be able to have timing and balance. So when I'm talking about feel with riding a bucking animal, you've got to, that feel comes through experience. It comes through practice. It comes through, a lot of that dedication of practicing at it and learning it and getting good at it. That's when you can start to feel, and you know what's coming. So that's where you can counter it. So a counter move it's like a boxer. If the more experience you have, when he's going to throw that jab, and to counter it, it has to be timed perfectly. So you're having feel so that you can time your counter movement perfectly. Feel with a horse, like starting a young horse. It's a little bit different what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you're trying to feel, and I'm not trying to get all where it sounds like I'm some yogi or something, but it's an important element. And the better you get at it, the better you see your horsemanship get. Whenever you can feel yourself, your intentions, your body language, you can feel the horse's body language and intentions, and you can see in his eyes and his ears and all of his mannerisms, what he's telling you. If he's telling you he's scared, if he's telling you, maybe I'm not going to pay any attention to you today, I don't feel like it. You've got to be able to feel these things and then know the appropriate thing to do. And feel, when you're talking about learning to talk to an animal that you can't talk to, feel is being able to say that yes, like I was talking about. So if I want you to follow me and you're a Martian and you and I can't speak, and I go up and grab your shirt and just start dragging you along, pretty soon you're going to go, wait a minute, I don't know if he even wants me to come along, because I'm coming along, but he's still dragging me. Does that make sense? So feel would be
100%.
like, where I could come up and I could take your shirt and I kind of pull you towards me. And if you start to come towards me, I quit pulling you. That's your yes. Yes, that's what I wanted. Where if I just keep dragging, you're like, well, that doesn't work. So the better you can get it at all these different ways to feel with a horse, that's very, I know, because I've proven it to myself a million times, that it's very important to the horse.
I've loved this conversation, Ty.
Yeah, it's been fun. You kind of took me, yeah, this is unlike anything I've done a million interviews, I can tell you that. And this one is definitely different than any one that I've ever done. And I enjoyed it too.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, I felt it. And so where can we drive people? And listen, you're also a legend in business, starting, you know, PBR, like all of that. I'll explain all of that in the intro. But where do you want to drive people to be able to follow along your insights and your adventure?
Well, I have I have a Facebook page. I don't really do Instagram that much. My wife does a lot. I do some things with horsemanship on Facebook because it's my passion, and I'm trying to help to get better information out there to people. There's been so much bad information handed down for so many generations that, it's like I was telling you about the Chinese telephone. It keeps losing the essence to where it's down to where it's just horrible in some ways, and sometimes in some places. And so it's something that I enjoy. It's something that when I go down and work with a young horse, I'll feel like I've been down there 5 minutes and I'll look at my watch and 4 hours went by. And so that's when that's when you know you love something, is when it feels like that. And so I have this incredible passion for it. I have a real passion to try to get better at it, but I also have a real passion to share it because I want to see things get better for the horse. I don't want to see people drag you by the shirt all the way for a mile. You know what I mean? I want to see people be able to give the horse a better deal and work from a place that makes sense to the horse instead of trying to shove all of our ways of thinking and all of our rules that we have in our head down the horse's throat. And so it's not about, if you're gonna you can make horses do things. And that's where I think it sometimes gets confusing to people, because you can make a horse do things if you're not enough of a a tough guy that can stay at it. But you're never going to have a partner. You're never going to have a horse that you can trust. He's always going to try to get rid of you when you need him the most. And so the better you can become at having a true partnership relationship with a horse, that you're giving him information, subtle, steady stream of information 100% of the time, then it takes the anxiety out of it. And it's just a subtle conversation that, now I want to go over here. Now I want to stop. I want to back up. I want to turn around. We got to get that cow. Don't let that cow go over here. We got to stop him. If it can start to operate where it feels like you're operating your own legs, that's when it feels better to not only you, but it feels better to the horse. And so that's something that really intrigues me, and something that I love working at and trying to get better at. And I have a lot of respect for the few people that I see that I think are really high level, top notch at it. And so that's why I like to share it. I like to see the horse. It's nice when you see a horse get a better deal instead of horses there's so many people that will punish a horse. They don't make the connection. They don't make the connection. They don't go.
It sounds like relationships in general.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would say so, but the difference is, at least humans, I guess we're not maybe all great at communicating, but at least we understand the language and we can talk to each other. Where with a horse, you have to learn body language. It's the only way. You have to learn body language and learn how to be consistent at it, to where you're not changing the words. The words have to stay the same. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can work from a place that you have the knowledge and the understanding of the way the horse sees the world, that's where you're working from a good place. As long as we just keep trying to shove our way of thinking and our brain function and the way we do things, as long as we keep trying to put that onto the horse, you're going to have trouble. It's going to be like this, because they're not us. They're not a predator. They're a prey animal. And there's a huge difference in that. They're a natural born follower. And until you start to have a rapport and a feel, and you guys are understanding the words, then you can change by rewarding the behaviors that make it safer for both of you.
The insights keep flowing. Ty, thank you. And please thank Paige for putting this together. Yeah. What a treat.
Well, I enjoyed it as well. And I think you got an interesting podcast. You do a great job interviewing, and that is that's definitely a talent. So I appreciate it as well.
All the best to you, Ty.
Yeah. Good meeting you.